much of what has been said here has been targeted at pages, and so I try to keep my my whole sort of try to keep this very short. So I'm not nearly as accomplished as Professor Marafa or even Dr. Timo, so I'll just introduce myself. I'm Ajibola Ogunsola. I'm a lowly third-year PhD student. So I'm just here today to just give you a sense of what a PhD is like here in Hong Kong, and then just hopefully share something that'll be helpful to the new students. So I'm doing a PhD in health policy and health systems, and my research is sort of focused on trying to look at the health system in Nigeria, the organization of the health system in Nigeria, and what implications that has for just the health of Nigerians in general. So, and I'm not sure how many of you are aware of this. Nominally in Nigeria, the local government is responsible for primary health care. And what primary health care is just think vaccination, really. There are other things to it, but just think vaccination. So when I had this idea, my first year, which I thought was interesting, I was going to check, I think a few months ago, there was this old Rahai in Nigeria about local government autonomy. I'm sure many of us are aware of what happened then. So the local government system in Nigeria currently as it runs is you have, well, before that judgment, it used to be that governors could appoint people to lead local government. So, but in places where they follow the constitutional, the constitution, they're supposed to have elections, right, to have chairman of local government. So my idea was to check, okay, so in the place where you have an appointed head of local government, you expect that the leader is not as independent as where you have an elected chairman. So I was going to sort of compare local governments across the country where you have elected leaders versus places where you have appointed leaders to see if that has any impact on sort of the health outcomes in those areas. So it sounds I think reasonable, possible, and all of that. So my hypothesis was that, okay, places where you have elected leaders will have better outcomes than places where you have appointed leaders. I'm sorry if I'm so technical, but it's still. If you're doing, I'm a social scientist. If you're doing a social science PhD in Nigeria, my experience, you probably run into, I think one major challenge is the lack of data. So if you're in Hong Kong, for example, I saw, again, I'm in health, but I tried to read for other fields. So I was reading a paper in political science. And what this guy did was trying to sort of get a sense of how lobbying works in the US. So how I went about doing it was that, so if you go to the White House in the US, you fill in a register, right? You say you're going to see the president, and then you write your name, your affiliation, and all of that. So what he did was he had access to that register, and then he just took that register for a number of years. And he was able to extract the data, and he just sort of did some analysis, and was just able to get a sense of, okay, so if you visit the president, does it increase the likelihood of maybe something that's of interest to you? Like maybe you're trying to pass a bill in the House or something in Congress, does it include, like, I'm just saying, yeah, this is what is possible in a place where you have good administrative data. Nigeria is not like that. So if you're doing a PhD, you have to go the extra mile. So I wanted to test this idea of, okay, elected versus appointed local government chairman, what effect does that have on outcomes? Again, I'm not sure if many people know this. INEC isn't responsible for elections at the local government level. It's usually the state independent electoral commissions that do that in Nigeria. So if you're not aware, that's something that you should know. So I had to go extract this information. And that meant going back to newspapers as far back as 2000, the year 2000, checking for each state to see, okay, in the year 2000, did you appoint or elect local government leader? So I had to go from year 2000 up until year 2021 at the time. And then I had to so I was checking newspapers, reading through newspapers for each state, and 6 states in Nigeria. So just can imagine how long that took me. It took me 3 months in total. It was very extensive, this data that I collection. But then, when it was time to do the analysis, after spending 3 months collecting data, it turned out that the results weren't what I expected. It wasn't desirable. It wasn't publishable, let me put it that way. Yeah, you can understand that differently, but I'm sure many of us know what that means. So it wasn't publishable. And then I'd spent in total about 5 months doing all of this. And it felt like it wasn't a waste of time. But then because the results were not publishable, it wasn't good. So and then I had to sort of sit back and try to understand, okay, going forward, how do I sort of avoid this? And this is where I'm going today with what I'm saying. I think So, Professor Marafa sort of mentioned a few things I think PhD students need to have, a few skills that they need to have. And then Dr. Timad also made a few contributions to that. In my experience so far, I think an important skill that every PhD student needs to have is you need to hone, you need to develop very quickly and very early the ability to distinguish between bad and good ideas, right? So you need to be able to tell very early. This thing that I'm spending so much time on, what is the likelihood that the results are going to be? Because what we want ultimately is publishable results, right? So if I had stopped to ask myself why collecting the data, because later on I was able to get a sense of why I didn't get the desired results, because I had to sit back and think about it. So I feel like if you're a PhD student, it's crucial to always stop. And this is important because for a lot of us, we get stuck in. You're working on something that you're like 3-4 months in, you haven't had time to stop and take a step back and just look at what you're doing to say, okay, does this make sense? Can I actually continue with this? A lot of us don't stop. So I think for a PhD student, it's important to stop. Always stop and ask yourself if what you're doing, if you're likely to get the results that you want from it. So if I had stopped while collecting that data to ask myself, I would have probably not gone on to spend 5 months on it. I would have stopped maybe at the third month to say, okay, this is not likely to yield the results that I want. So I think for PhD students, it's crucial to always stop. Again, I'm saying it sounds counterintuitive, like you feel like you just need to keep driving on and just pursuing that goal of research. But it's crucial to always stop and think and say, what I'm working on, does it make sense? Will this give me desired results? So my advice today is always stop. It's not just for PhD students, and I think this applies both on the graduate and master's students. So whatever it is you're doing in life, we're getting very philosophical now. Always stop. Particularly if it's things that it's sort of easy to get stuck in. You're sort of going, you're like 3-4 months in, and then you're like, what's that? Is it the sunk cost fallacy or is it something cost fallacy? You spend so much time on this stuff, and it's so hard for you to take a step back. So always stop to think is it worth doing, or will this give